Today on With the First Pick, Shrine Bowl director Eric Galko joins us to talk about some of our favorite quarterbacks in the 2025 NFL draft class, some of the top performers on both sides of the ball from last week's action, and then we'll make our NFL Bowl predictions. Since the NFL season is finally here, I'm Ryan Wilson. That's Rick Spielman. That, of course, is Eric Galko. Rick, episode 177. Before we get going, how many days to the 2025 NFL draft?
Okay, Eric, don't panic. Okay, but just so you know that there are 231 days left until the 2025 NFL draft. But hold on a second. This is a little bit of a quiz for you. How long do you have before you have to put that roster together for the East-West Shrine game?
About 56 days, I'll say.
Wow.
Yeah, and honestly, we've got to make decisions before then too to start planning. So it'll be our draft is in about 50 days, Rick. I don't think anyone envies that process.
Yeah, well, we would no way be able to do this show in 50 days and try to pick correctly. And it takes 50 days just to correct Ryan's mock drafts, Ryan's theories, Ryan's everything that Ryan does. It's a whole process to try to get it polished up and corrected. And I only have 231 days left, to be honest with you, before I can get to that point.
Eric asked to get the full Rick. He's getting the full Rick. So early on into this thing. Producer Debo's with us again. He's been demoted, Rick. He must have angered somebody up in the ivory tower, as you call it. So he's with us again today. So it's good to have Debo here. All right. Eric, I would imagine you'll understand this. I go through this every single podcast with Rick, but I'm going to try once again. For the listeners and viewers out there, do us a favor. Hit the like button here on YouTube. And since football is back, Rick, leave us a review of the 5-star variety. Okay. Rick gets really confused with the 5-star reviews. He thinks we're talking prospects. He doesn't understand how Apple Podcasts and Spotify work. So leave us a review of the 5-star variety, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, because you can do that there now. And if you leave a comment at either place, we would appreciate it. And if you mention an FBS or FCS draft eligible player, Rick and I will talk about that player. And maybe Eric will join us again later in the podcast in the coming weeks and months to evaluate him for you.
Can I just give a little tease here?
Yeah.
Eric threw out a name, and we'll get into it later in the show, that I had no idea, and I couldn't put the clicker down when I was watching them. So I don't know if that would qualify as whatever you and Debo call it, 5-star. I call it rat hole player. So This was a rat hole player that I don't think a lot of people know about, but by the time this season is said and done, they're going to know this kid's name.
Nice little tease. Nice tease.
What a tease. What a tease. Wow.
Rick is talking about, and we'll get into it, but just to tease the tease, Rick is talking about the week 1 Shrine Bowl players of the week on both sides of the ball. We'll get into that. And I'm glad. Look at that. You made Rick smile. Way to go. Fantastic. Hey, Eric, let's start here. Shrine Bowl 1000 came out this summer, and that is an exhaustive list. And I like to use that as a roadmap to how I spend my Saturdays, because I don't know a lot of these players down the roster at this point in the conversation, it being September 5th. But one of the names you had on there, you can just talk about how you guys put it together and how the scouts work over the summer to do this. But one of the names that was on the list is our guy, Miller Moss. We talked about him, obviously, previous show on Tuesday, because Rick said we got to talk about this guy. He was not on either of our radars this summer, but he's just one of the names that are probably on this list that maybe people weren't paying attention to, and now people are paying attention to. So just tell me about the Shrine Bowl 1000 and how your crew puts this thing out.
Well, on Miller first, I remember talking to Lincoln Riley last year about a couple other things, and he had mentioned the next guy being Miller Moss. And I think we have all should establish that when Lincoln Riley thinks the next quarterback is going to be good, we should listen. I think like every single quarterback he's had the last decade has won a Heisman or been the first overall pick or both. So he was bullish, and it was an unquestioned, a lot of teams going into January, February of last year, they're saying, hey, we like our guy in our roster, but we're going to add a portal guy, or we're going to look someplace else, right? A lot of teams do that in the quarterback market. And I don't think Lincoln Riley, as far as I know, had any hesitation at all that Miller Moss would be great. And again, Lincoln knows quarterbacks better than anybody else I know coaching college football right now. But Shrine Bowl 1000, honestly, Ryan, I think our staff starts looking towards the next year's class about December, right? Really in our all-star game landscape, we're deciding who the best 100 or so players are in October. And really by November, December, we're wrapping up the class. So our staff really kind of looks ahead from December until July. And we released that pretty early in the offseason in July, because I used to do a lot more media, and really by late August, if you don't know who a lot of the players are that you think could be first, second round picks or even later than that, you're probably behind. And I thought, hey, if we can release this in July and have media as well as NFL clubs who are kind of getting settled and area scouts maybe changing areas or national scouts kind of getting their feet wet a little bit. And if we can kind of add some benefit to them to say, hey, these are the guys similar to National and Blesto. Hey, these are the guys at these schools to check out. That was kind of the impetus why we do it in July. And 1,000 players sounds like a lot. It gets difficult. I can tell you, I won't say it on the show, but who was 1,001? I can tell you who that is because we take that process really seriously to prepare for the Shrine Bowl. And last year, every player we had except for 2 was on that list. And we think that this year will have the same kind of success this year as well.
Got anything, Rick?
Yeah, Eric, as you put this initial list together and you guys go through the process of following these guys through the fall, does that list change at all as far as, okay, there's, we talked about Moss at USC. We're going to talk about another lad that I went through and tried to comb the internet and other places, and I couldn't find his name anywhere. Some of the sites don't even have him listed. But this is a kid. How do you go? I mean, it sounded like you and everybody, you try to talk to as many coaches and try to talk to as many scouts as possible. So if the mainstream yahoos like me and Ryan don't know the names at this point, all of a sudden you guys find these guys. Do they move up the list, and that's why and how you follow them as you go through? They go through their season.
We try to strike this really important balance of being really confident in our preseason evaluations and knowing who these guys are as much as possible, with the same stroke of being able to adapt, right? You don't want to react to week 1 and be like, oh, I guess this guy's up here now, this guy's not playing well, and this guy's out of the picture, because we can't do that quickly either in a 5-6 week span. But at the same time, Miller Moss, we hadn't seen him play in a big way either. So for us and our staff and what we have in our internal database is we have a section called like what we're watching for in 2024. And it's very pointed to be not just, is he playing well, but hey, is this a guy that didn't show something last year, or is he playing a new position, or has he not played before? We've heard this from the coach, and we try to be really pointed on what we're looking for Miller Moss. About 1,000, maybe more than that, including juniors. We have a 2 to 3 line sentence on what we're looking for that player. So it allows us to say, hey, we know the player in the preseason. What are we looking for this year? And has he accomplished those things? And Miller Moss is a guy who was a lot of just experience and confidence and adapting off script and being confident. And he showed that. And that's why we can feel comfortable adjusting what we had him in the preseason. And, especially with the transfer portal, Rick, a lot of guys are early season. We have a tag for also early season watch, a transfer, a last year injury. And we have probably 500 of those guys in our database now because so many guys transferred. So the first 3 or 4 weeks of the year, both from the transfer aspect as well as like the FCS guys playing top competition, are by far the busiest weeks for us in the scouting process.
What's the relationship like with the NFL teams, no matter the time of year, I guess, as you get into this? How do you deal with the Rick Spielmans of the world? Is it typically a give and take? Is it one-sided? Like, how does that work for people who are curious about how you're obviously putting on an all-star game and you're running this like you're, in some sense, like you're running an NFL team, but you're also trying to benefit these players as they take the next step?
Yeah, and the teams too. And when I took over, I kind of let every team, I was walking with them point and say, hey, in one way or another, I don't need to rely on your information to make our decisions. At the end of the day, it's my call. If we invite a player that's not good, it's on me. It's not on you. And if a player's great, I may also get the benefit of that, even though I maybe don't deserve it. So it really meant to be a give and take relationship. And Rick, I'm sure you can attest to, like, a lot of time I'm talking to guys 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're driving from school A to a hotel for school B tomorrow. And we just kind of chop it up and talk about players, talk about the process too. But it's really collaborative, right? They can let me know, hey, they're going on school visits, and then they're experienced scouts. What are the teams saying? What have they seen in practice? What's really important there? And then vice versa. I can kind of share, hey, director of player personnel, assistant GM on the road. Hey, this is a guy that maybe you're not in your list to go look at, right? A guy last year, for example, Miles Harden at South Dakota, as a cornerback that we liked a lot all season long in the offseason. He played great against Luther Burden as a junior. Like, he was on our radar. And I think as of September, only a handful of higher level executives had been through there. So friends of mine that are in the league that are executives, I was saying, hey, maybe check out this guy as well. And Miles ended up being a 6th round pick, who I think is starting for the Browns. So it's that kind of give and take we can kind of share, because we have to be a little more direct and pointed in who we're looking for in September and October, whereas especially directors and national scouts maybe don't have to be. And that's kind of the give and take we have as a team too. But certainly, along with our scouting staff, who I want to give the most credit to because they do the dirty work, I talked to probably at least 1 or 2 NFL personnel members or college coaches at least every day.
Can I ask just the relationship with the agents and with how it's going on today? These guys showing up for practice but not participating in games, and how many guys do you have that you actually invite? Do you invite over? Because I think the rosters have to be bigger now because some of these, I call them yahoos, that go out and practice for a day and then don't participate the rest of the week, or they don't participate in the game. Yeah. How do you balance that and dealing with the agents?
You know, I think there are a lot of people that share your point of view. I think my point of view is I've got to make it worthwhile for players and agents, right? I've worked with agents for a long time, XFL before then too. And in my belief, and I hope for a lot of agents, and I think most of it's true, and for players as well, they want to do what's best for them. And they have one draft process. Next year we'll go through this all again, but that player only gets one chance at this, and they're trying to do the best thing they could do for them. So my focus has been, hey, how can I make this beneficial for you? So I've talked to many players, and again, the point of an all-star game, my focus all the time is number one, health of our players. I want guys to come to the Shrine Bowl and leave the Shrine Bowl saying, hey, Eric took care of me. The Shrine Bowl took care of me. I was taken care of. I didn't feel pressured. I got enough sleep. I got enough food, and great food. I had the recovery resources. I think, Rick, a lot of all-star games have passed, didn't have those for players, and our facilities, NFL facilities, hotel resources, health are really, really important to us. That's number one. Number two is, can they enjoy the process? We are benefiting Shriners Children's, and we have Shriners Children's patients there during the week, during media day. Can our players experience that? The interview process for NFL teams, really important, right? NFL clubs can't talk to these players until the all-star games. That's a NFL mandated rule. So there's a big chance for them to interview the NFL teams. Our interview process is great. And then the on-field piece, it's not unimportant for sure. It's super important. But I think for some guys, it's about, hey, the risk reward. And for my focus, hey, if I can keep these guys healthy and they know from past teammates or from their agents they could be healthy, they're more likely to play. Rick, we probably had, we had guys last year that showed up and didn't feel healthy to play. I didn't make them feel bad. Was I bummed? I would love to see some guys practice if they could, but they weren't 100%. And we've had guys say, hey, I'm not going to be able to good to go. And after one day of practice, they're like, you know what? I actually feel great. I want to go practice. So I believe that if we don't pressure guys, they're more likely to do the right thing and want to practice and play. But there's a lot of benefits to all-star games than just putting on pads again. We had players last year that played 4 or 5 or 6 straight years in college football. They put enough film on their or enough tape out there to make sure NFL teams know who they are. And then some guys like Caden Wallace, who played 4 years at Penn State entirely at right tackle because Olu Fashanu was there, came to the Shrine Bowl, played left tackle, impressed a lot of teams, including the Patriots. Now he's their left tackle of the future. So there's pros and cons to having guys play in practice, but I believe that my focus is to keep these guys healthy first and foremost, the interview process, and hope we treat guys correctly. They'll want to practice more and more.
For the record, I was higher on Caden Wallace than Rick, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can I continue with some of my questions, please?
Yeah. You got another one?
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit because one of the things when I would come to the East-West game was not only, the evaluating the players, and we had our staff down there, but all these coaches that get an opportunity that maybe are assistant position coaches that get to coach a position, or coordinators that get to become a head coach. How involved are you with the NFL on putting those coaching staffs together? And do you think that is an opportunity for some of these guys to get a chance to maybe coach at a higher role? And have you identified guys as you worked with them that, hey, this guy has a future as a potential head coach in the NFL?
Yeah, it's something that doesn't really happen until after the season. So in January, so I get like a 3-week window to meet these, to kind of work with the NFL league office to who we'd love to have and have them at the Shrine Bowl and work with them. But 2 years ago, we had the 2 NFL coaching staffs, right? That used to be kind of the old all-star games. We had the Patriots and the Falcons. And I loved it. I joke all the time that Bill Belichick was the prettiest girl in Vegas to our players when he was there coaching the Patriots for all a week. And that was an awesome experience. But I really love the process that it is now with coaches from different backgrounds and different teams, because it forces guys to make the offense and defense really simple, right? And share notes on how they do things and we do things and the connections that are built. I know players from the 2022 or coaches from the 2022 Shrine Bowl that still stay in touch. They've hired each other at different jobs. That's a really cool opportunity for this event. But certainly, you know, in this job at the Shrine Bowl, talking to college personnel, college coaches, and now NFL position coaches, when you see someone who like really stands out, it's so obvious, right? And I don't want to, I've had a lot of great coaches, a couple of guys that jump out. Danton Lynn, the USC defensive coordinator now. He was the defensive back coach of the Ravens. I mean, he just jumps out as, obviously his father's Anthony Lynn. Like, he jumps out as a future NFL head coach, and he was incredibly impressive. And this year we had Mike Kafka, offensive coordinator for the Giants, you know, former player, future NFL head coach. So obvious, great person, great leader, great manager. You know, as an offensive coordinator, took his hands off the offense and let that week's offensive coordinator take the reins. That was impressive. And then Richard Hightower, longtime special teams coach. I think the Bears will be one of the most creative coaches or teams with the new kickoff. And it's because he is as innovative and as creative as a coach comes. So it's awesome to work with these guys and stay in touch, and, you know, working with the NFL League office to identify coaches who could be good fits to coach in the All-Star game, but also seeing these guys develop over the course of that week and want to be great head coaches or great coordinators in the NFL, be able to relay that to other agents or teams in the business is a really cool part of it. So that's a wrinkle, Rick, that I appreciate you bringing up, because it's one of the coolest parts about the Shrine Bowl's development of players, but also coaches. And I think a lot of guys have really benefited from it.
Yeah. And I think, Ryan, it gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. Not only are you down there for the players, but this is the pipeline, in my opinion, for finding the next head coach or finding the next offensive coordinator. And go ahead, Eric.
Did you? I think the NFL League office almost, you had like identified someone at the Shrine Bowl back when as a coach, right? During practice.
Yeah, I used to. My scouts were out at practice, and when the other team was in meetings, I went and sat in all the meetings.
Yeah,
I got the opportunity to sit and, you know, a guy, Phil Rauscher, who we ended up hiring as assistant O-line coach. Now he's the run game coordinator down in Jacksonville. And as much as I had the privilege of sitting in some of those meetings, I just wanted to see how they commanded the room. I got an opportunity to sit, Ryan Ficken, who's a special teams coordinator out with the Chargers. He was down there as a special teams coordinator, and he was an assistant. Like, we put in 5 coaches all the time because I thought it was that important for their development. But I had the inside, like, just to go see. You can interview these guys just like you interview the players, but when you actually see them working and you actually sit in some staff meetings and listen to the head coach for the week and how he organizes the staff meetings and how they do the position meetings and everything, and just listening to the command of the room. Does this guy, who's an assistant O-line coach, have the command of the room? So I always thought, from an NFL standpoint, and especially in my role as a general manager, not only were we identifying the players, and we had a whole group down there doing that, but I was also making a list of coaches. And, hey, potentially you may be, you know, tell whoever the head coach is, may not know this guy, but I sat and watched him operate in the room, and I saw his command and his ability to communicate with the players. You watch the coaches out there, they get an opportunity to coach on the field, you know, from individual period to things. Are they making corrections? So not only, I think, these all-star games, and especially the East-West, who I think was the first all-star game to put together a combination of coaches, not just the staff. I thought it was a great opportunity for a general manager to make a list of these young and up-and-coming coaches as well. And I don't think that's talked about enough, but I think it's a huge experience and huge value as part of these all-star games.
Yeah, I knew that you had some role in that. And also, and you guys would know better than I did, but just the people that I talk to, a lot of times the coaches don't have a large network of other coaches they can reach out to, and they need people like Eric and obviously Rick sitting in on these meetings and taking notes and doing the things he does. So you guys are doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, I didn't get an opportunity at the training table, so I'm going to bitch about that. But other than that, I had all the access that I wanted.
By the way, Rick, you know this. I've told Eric this several times. We're going to try to make it the Shrine Bowl this year. That's our goal with the first pick. So if you leave us a 5-star review and Rick doesn't bellyache about it, maybe we'll be able to get down there.
I will leave a 5-star review right after this podcast. If that's all it takes, I will leave a 5-star review, maybe 2.
Because you know, some people get out of the league and they just want to sit back and play pickleball all day. No one loves talking to players more than Rick. I cannot stress to you how much he loves talking to getting face-to-face interaction, not let alone the, you know, seeing them work out, but the chance to have conversations with him. No one gets more excited than that, which is ironic because he doesn't like talking to me. But here we are. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And Rick, we're going to come back. We're going to get Eric's thoughts on this 2025 QB class and some sleepers who aren't named Miller Moss right after this.
Oh, rattle.
Today, with the support of the NFL, a new playbook is being written. The National Gay Flag Football League provides inclusive play for over 4,000 LGBTQ plus players and allies. Here is a home with no penalty for being you.
Hey, Rick, let me ask you, you were never part of Hard Knocks in Minnesota, right?
Oh, God, no.
I'm asking that because there's a clip out yesterday. I think it was the final episode of Hard Knocks. They're in Chicago, obviously. And Ryan Poles, the GM of Chicago, he's at the Clemson-Georgia game last weekend, and he's standing next to Joe Shane, the GM of the Giants. And Joe Shane has picked up on the microphone saying to Ryan Poles, got to be nice not to be looking at the quarterbacks. So if you're Daniel Jones's agent and all the things that happened this summer, and you get a call from Daniel Jones's agent, and he's like, so what's this about? What's that conversation? I'm just curious, like, what's the conversation like when it's clear that you're looking for a quarterback?
Well, that's why you're not on Hard Knocks. And you're down there and saying, those are the things that it's great for the media. It's great for the fan base to hear all these, how the best way, intimate conversations.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they've had talks with Daniel Jones' agent. I mean, the guy's been hurt, didn't play last year. He had one good year when he was healthy, got him to the playoffs, their first year down there together. But he knows there's pressure on him. We talk about Deshaun Watson having maybe the most pressure out of anybody in the NFL to perform. Well, Daniel Jones isn't too far behind on what he has to accomplish. So I'm sure his agent understands it too. Listen, if this guy gets hurt again, we're going to be looking for a future quarterback. So to me, I would tell the agent, that's on you, and that's on your player to go out there and perform. Hopefully I don't have to look for a quarterback, but I better get started just in case.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I just want to get your thoughts on that because I saw that come across the old Twitter machine there, and I thought you would have some thoughts on it. So thank you for sharing that. All right, on Tuesday, Eric, Rick and I we ranked our 8 quarterbacks from the last weekend, just 8 guys we wanted to watch. Shedeur Sanders was number 1. Our buddy Garrett Nussmeier, who we've been driving the Nuss bus for a couple of months now, he was on the list. We mentioned Miller Moss. Are there any guys that we need to talk about that perhaps we haven't yet talked about? I know Cam Ward, you're a huge Cam Ward fan. He came out like gangbusters as well. But I want to get some names on the list that we should be watching so we can start focusing on those guys as we roll through the fall here.
Yeah, I think, obviously we'll see Cam Ward develop over the course of the year. And I think Miami's going to be favorite, if not a heavy favorite, the rest of the way. So he's got a great chance to go undefeated in the playoff. Quinn Ewers, I think at Texas, I think he's been such a guy in the spotlight for so long. I think we all know about him, but I think sometimes we kind of gloss over how impressive he can be as a quarterback. And obviously Shedeur is impressive. And Miller Moss, Garrett Nussmeier, 2 guys that I'm excited to keep watching their film early on in the year. But a couple guys besides that. One, he played South Oklahoma State this week. It's his only FBS opponent all week long, but he's won 2 national championships. Mark Gronowski at South Dakota State. I know watching FCS film during the season is not the most fun thing to do sometimes, but this guy has been a winner. He had a chance to transfer to a lot of schools at the FBS level this year if he wanted to, and opted to stay at school and try to win a third national championship. 6'2", 6'3", strong arm, mobile, smart, intelligent, runs a balanced offense. I think he's a guy that I know area scouts like a lot. I think a lot of teams are aware of, but don't be surprised if another undefeated season or a post-undefeated after this Oklahoma State loss, narrow loss. He's a guy that kind of firms up and being not only a guy that teams like, but as a top 3-4 round guy, he has that kind of potential. Talon Green at Arkansas, very excited to watch him. A mobile dual threat. He moves around like Cam Newton did in college at Boise State. He's
a big kid too, right?
He's big. He's big. He's probably the most physically impressive quarterback in the country. And he's got the talent and that offense. We'll see what he can kind of do this year. A week 1 win against a lesser opponent, but he's a guy with all the tools in the world. And then one guy that I don't want to forget about, and I don't want to call him Brock Purdy. That's my guy, and no one compares to Brock Purdy. But Brock was a guy that people kind of forgot about because he has been starting for so long at Iowa State. He was impressive, won a lot of games. And I think a guy that reminds me a little bit of that kind of where Brock was is Dylan Gabriel at Oregon. This is a guy that's been around a lot, a little undersized. I got to see him at Manning Passing Academy in July, which I love going, or June every year. Love it because you get to see all these top quarterbacks, all these alpha males and how they interact, which I'm sure you can appreciate, Rick, and also watch these guys throw side by side. And Dylan Gabriel, for a somewhat smaller quarterback, the arm's there. The experience is there. He's won a lot of games. That game against Texas last year at Oklahoma, really impressive. So I'm excited to see those three guys, Mark Gronowski at the FCS level, Dylan Gabriel, New School at Oregon, and then Taylor Green at Arkansas. I think all those guys have a lot of intrigue, and wouldn't be surprised if at least one of those guys is starting games for a team in 2026 and beyond.
Hey, Eric, can I just follow up with that real quick? I don't know if you know much yet, and we just noticed him a little bit, the North Dakota State quarterback, and how he performs. Is that Miller? Is that who that is?
Cam Miller, yep.
Yeah. Is he a potential watch list guy for you as well?
Absolutely. I mean, physically, he's the part. He's a mobile guy. They kind of, in that first Colorado game, they kind of have another mobile quarterback. They kind of subbed in, but Cam's going to run 4.7, maybe 4.8 at worst. He's a 40-yard dash quarterback as well, too. And he's been really experienced, and he's grown a lot since starting as a sophomore. And I think the accuracy he showed in that game, the confidence, even though they lost that lead in the end, I didn't put it on him at all. And decision-making, red zone decision-making, accuracy there, using a bunch of receivers, and a kind of a unique offense that wants to be a run-heavy team, but is using him more and more. You know, that's one thing I always care about as well. When a team's identity is running the football, offensive line play, but they're spreading out because they don't have a quarterback who can kind of effective that. I think when an offensive scheme changes who they are because their quarterback's talents, it says how much they think of that quarterback. So no doubt Cam's in the mix. And I think people have said maybe not a top-heavy quarterback class. I think with the addition of Nussmeier and Miller Moss, plus all the guys we already know, I think it's one of the deeper pools of guys. I'm excited to see kind of emerges this year, and Cam being one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And Rick, we haven't talked in detail about this, but I want to hear what both of you guys think about this. A month ago, we weren't sure about the quarterback class, especially compared to the one that just came out. To your point, Eric, this feels pretty deep. And after week one, it's actually pretty exciting to have some options, it feels like, in terms of, and Rick talked about this a year ago. We listened to the clip on the podcast Tuesday. We knew who Caleb and Drake May were a year ago. We didn't know who number 3 was going to be. Turns out Jalen Daniel was number 2. Jaden Daniel, excuse me. It feels like there's an opportunity for everything's wide open, not just one. One isn't settled either. Like there could be 5 different iterations of what we're looking at here.
I was talking to a scout just the other day about the quarterback class, ironically, and it feels like Carson Beck at Georgia is going to be one of the top tier guys. Will he be the first overall pick at quarterback? I don't know, but he feels like again, not saying he's a Caleb Drake level guy, but a guy that teams are really comfortable with that could be, hey, this guy could be a quarterback that starts for us. But I think around the periphery of him, Drew Allar has looked impressive. He's got all the tools. And Connor Weigman, he had a bad first week, but he's got a ton of arm talent. Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, he's got arm talent. Plus the guys who's already said, I think there's a lot of opportunity for 1 or 2 or 3 guys to rise up. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but we've got 15 candidates, and hopefully 1 or 2 of those guys rise up to also be a first and maybe a top 10 pick.
What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, that's what's exciting. It's amazing how these kids, like, you know, the rise of Joe Burrow, the rise of Jaden Daniels. Every year, it seems like someone is going to pop up and separate themselves. What do they say? Does the cream rise to the top? And that like 1950s thing.
That's the saying.
Someone's going to rise. And,
yes, and I think the transfer portal has helped a lot. I'm sorry, Rick, go ahead.
That what's even going to be more exciting is when you have all of these conferences starting to come together. Now you have, you know, Oregon playing the Ohio States of the world, and Washington, all these teams. It's almost like becoming a NFL caliber that there's a few dogs. I don't want to call them dogs or homecoming games in the beginning of the season, but you better get ready to play because of how these conferences realigned. And you're going to be in a dogfight week in and week out. So that'll be fun to watch which quarterbacks, because of the level of competition, are going to be playing against actually rise.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it.
One wrinkle of that, Ryan, as well, too, is that it's obvious, but the transfer portal, I think what it's done is, you know, there are times even 5-6 years ago now, I think we can appreciate that there were probably 30, 40, 50 schools that just had a really bad quarterback situation in college, right? And now with the portal, you don't have to just suffer through whatever your recruiting class was 3 years earlier. You can go get, you know, a Cam Ward from the portal, or you can get a guy that was maybe, you know, Southern Miss has Tate Rodemaker, who was the Florida State backup quarterback last year, and he's looked good so far. So I think we've kind of raising the floor of every quarterback in the country, because the portal allows you to kind of go get somebody if he's not on your roster already. So I think we've got, close to 90% of teams who actually like their quarterback this year. And that's a huge change from a couple of years ago. And that allows that floor to be raised, and hopefully more guys get a chance to thrive.
2 of those teams are not Florida and Florida State, but we don't have to talk about that.
It's 1 week, and all right, you're ready to throw in the towel. Okay.
I think DJ is starting for Graham Mertz. Is that correct? The freshman?
Because of injury.
Oh, Graham got hurt. Okay. Okay. That makes a little more sense, because I didn't think Graham played poorly. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I take that back. Billy Napier. All right, Rick, let's get to the part you're super excited about, the Shrine Bowl Week 1 standouts. We'll go through the list we'll start at the top with Cam Ward. We talked about Cam Ward on Tuesday, but Eric, I want to know, have you talked to any folks this week, last week, and the last month or so in the league, in terms of their thoughts about Cam? Because Rick and I come down in a similar place. Not day one yet. We want to see him play on time more. The athleticism is obvious and clear if you watch any Cam, especially last weekend. But what's the league thinking about Cam right now?
I think the league has, I think at least the scouts I've talked to, and I talked to one scout who was at the game and a couple other directors, and talking just quarterback. Obviously, quarterback's always a topic that comes up pretty early on too. And I think the question is, like, again, to your guys' point, can he be on time? Can he, is he going to fit our offense? Is he going to be able to work in the pocket consistently? Some of the decision-making is a question for host teams as well too. And I'll give you my kind of retort is, one of the big philosophies I have, and we kind of have our younger scouts, is look at last year's film and look at this year's film and spot the difference. And the more differences in a positive way means that guy can still get better and grow. And these guys are all 21, 22, 23 years old. Cam, I think, is just 22, despite playing 5 years in college. And he's gotten so much better every single year that you can look to and point, that's what he got better at here. That's what he got better at here. This year, the arm angle and the confidence there, the finishing downfield, the accuracy in the red zone and mid-range throws is even better than what was a year ago as well too. So my pushback to teams is, I think the on-time stuff can get better. It has gotten better over his college career. I think the deep ball accuracy has gotten better. It will continue to get better. I think his play from the pocket has improved. It's not perfect yet either, but you can't coach and you can't find his improvisation, his confidence, his ability to throw in different arm angles and different platforms with accuracy, with poise and velocity. So I'm kind of edging NFL teams. Hey, I think you guys the same way. Not day one yet. You're going to get there by the end of the year. So just do it now, Ryan. Just do it now, Rick. You're going to get to him being a first-round pick by November. And I think just don't wait. I'm not going to wait. I think he's a special person, a special player. I think he's had a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in this year's draft. And I think he has a chance to be a Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray level playmaker at the NFL level, because he can improvise off script. He has that confidence. And when you have the arm talent and the accuracy to make good on it, it's really hard to find guys who are that comfortable when things break down. I think Cam has that special trait.
Hey, can I digress for a minute?
Yeah.
Ryan, Eric, just like you were just mentioning, listening to describing a Cam Ward, can you talk about, not on the field, but what off-field characteristic, when you interact with all these players, that say, hey, this guy is probably going to be successful in the NFL, not because what he does on the field, but is there any characteristic, scouts are always going through character, blah, 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 blah. Any characteristics that really pop out to you as you interact with these players and say, yeah, this guy is going to be a
it's in my experience, and this one word ends up being a lot of different areas you got to go down, but it all comes down to self-confidence. In my experience, I'm obsessed with this idea of what's the common thread between a Pat Mahomes and a Brock Purdy, right? Very different backgrounds, very different styles. It's that they knew who they were as players and have that self-confidence. And I think talking with Cam and talking with Brock Purdy, all these guys I got a chance to be around, and even, Trevor Lawrence and those guys, well, when they were coming out, they know who they are. They know what they're great at. They know what to get better at. And they're not willing to waver on what they can do and can't do, but also willing to learn, right? I tell this story all the time to players. When I first talked to Brock Purdy, when he accepted the Shrine Bowl, because my dog barking here, he accepted the Shrine Bowl. I talked to him on the phone, and I was like, hey, anything I can give you in terms of input on what the draft process is like, whatever else. And he said, sure, I'd love to hear that, Mr. Galko. And I start talking, and he says, hold on one second. And then he leaves for a second and comes back. Okay, I got my pen and paper. We can get started now. Like he was already so confident. He started 4 years in college, but he wanted to still get better. That was a way that he showed that. And I won't name names, but also in this job, I've talked to guys who maybe lack that self-confidence. And I think it's so apparent when that happens too. So if a guy has the requisite talent and his style of play fits what he can do on the field, that self-confidence piece is so important. And that's what I'm obsessed with looking at with these guys, whether it's manning camp, on the phone, going to campuses, seeing them at the Shrine Bowl. Guys that have that kind of trait are really hard to find. It's pretty obvious when you see it.
Hey, Rick, you talk about this too, though. What were your impressions just from watching television, but even when you're in person, of someone like Cam Ward throwing that interception and then he doesn't care, where we saw some other quarterbacks play over the weekend and it looked like they were in their own heads midway through the first quarter? Does that register with you? Or
yeah,
okay.
You know, not that I'm an expert FBI interrogator, but reading body language. And the one thing why I love to go to the All-Star games, why I love to go to watch games live, is you can see body language. You can see when they come off the sideline. I mean, I saw one player who I won't name that was a first-round quarterback that ended up he came and threw his helmet on the sideline and he was cussing out the coach, the offensive lineman. I was like, why would we want to? He's talented, but why the hell would we want to deal with a guy like that? So to me, like, Eric gets a pretty good picture of a guy being around him and as much as interaction as he has with these players. And it's self-confidence, it's maturity, it's self-aware. And, you know, the things that you can't see on tape, those are the answers you're trying to get when you're going through this pre-draft process.
I appreciate you not telling the hot dog story where you get mad at the kid eating a hot dog at the bowl game.
Yeah. Just go out there and play, will you? God, don't sit there while your brothers are out there fighting their rear ends off to win a game and you're eating a hot dog on the sideline talking to ESPN.
That's my fault for bringing that up. All right, we'll go to Offensive Player of the Week for the Shrine Bowl Week 1 standouts, Rick. Then we'll get to what I assume is your guy, because you knew about Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. He took it to Georgia Southern there. 21 carries, 261 yards, 6 touchdowns. That'll work. Not asked to do a whole bunch in the run game, but I don't think we could dig him on that given his final numbers. I didn't realize the game was so close. I didn't watch it live. I went back and watched his runs, and I was like, okay, they're not even blowing these guys out. But Eric, tell me a little about Jeanty. Rick and I and Mike Renner talked about him in summer scouting, but he made a statement in week 1.
Yeah, it's the rare balance of contact balance and explosiveness at the first contact. I mean, that's what you need to have in the NFL to be a great running back. Production matters a little bit, but how they're producing is so important. And he's a guy that is big, well-built, composed, and can work through contact and keep going downfield and make those big plays. But I think, you know, what I care about most running back evaluations now is part of his athletic ability, Isaac Rendo level athletic ability, but we didn't see it in week 1. You kind of hinted at it. Ashton Jeanty, 43 catches last year, 5 receiving touchdowns. I mean, this is a guy that is a dominant running back in their offense with a good offensive line and can finish upfield. But his really big threat is his ability to be an out of the backfield kind of guy. And I think that's what makes him special as a prospect. It's why he goes from being a good college running back who can do it in the NFL level to being maybe a early round pick, first, second round guy if he tests well and has a great draft process, because he can come in and be your obviously first, second down, every down carry back, but also can be a threat out of the backfield too. So super impressive. And also was a great pass blocker. I think he had 4 pass block reps in this game, was good in all 4, was great last year in that role as well, to an LBS in the NFL as well. So a 3-down back, productive, well-built, should test well. I think it all the makings of being a guy who's one of the best running backs in this year's draft class.
Yeah, he got in the open field a lot in this game, and he was not run down at any point. I'm glad you mentioned the receptions last year, because that's important, and also the pass blocking, because, you know, we can talk about these guys running through and over guys at the college level, but if you're not pass protecting, you're not going to play on third downs. So that's critical as well. I'll be interested to see what he times. One of the things I struggle with is sort of ranking and stacking these running backs. This was a pretty easy watch. There wasn't a whole lot of stuff to figure out there. Is he, and I don't even know if you have this, is he your running back 1 right now, or is it a situation where you just have them grouped together?
He's in that top tier. Yeah, we don't like rank guys necessarily too. It's not really productive for us to, especially because that might change day to day. I don't have to do a podcast every week like you guys do to rank these guys for that. but no, Ashton is definitely in that tier 1 as a running back, and I think he'll end up being tier 1 for a lot of NFL teams, if not already. But I'm not sure as a Bijan Robinson in this class, but I think there's a lot of guys in this class that are going to challenge in that tier 1 group. Yeah,
Marion Hampton out of North Carolina, Quinshon Judkins, of course. You and I joke about Rick getting everyone and their brother to stay at Ohio State. Travion Henderson's still there. Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State.
Yep.
One of the guys that Rick and I watched last year, I think it was one of the 5-star recommendations. I ended up loving this guy. I haven't checked, but I would imagine he's on your Shrine Bowl 1000. Cameron Scatabo out of Arizona State.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a spark plug. he's not going to test well, but he's one of the toughest players. I think he was an FCS transfer last year. I'm just looking at my list of running backs. The great irony here, Eric, is that we're about to talk about our guy Kyle Kennard.
Yeah.
Edge rusher out of South Carolina, and Rick dropped off. He's on the island, and sometimes the power goes out, so I can only assume that the power went out there. Debo, did you happen to text Rick, or we don't know where Rick is? Rick is back.
I'm back.
He's headphones on. Power
I'm
is
back.
restored. And you came back just in time, Rick, because we're going to talk about the Shrine Bowl Defensive Player of the Week, Week 1 standout, edge rusher Kyle Kennard. And I'll let you take it away because it sounds like you were very impressed with this young man's effort.
Yeah, no, I wasn't impressed. I don't know if number 77, the left tackle from Old Dominion, is on your list or not, but maybe reevaluate that. So
give the guy a break.
No, I mean, he had a rough day. Everybody has a rough day. I have a rough day every time I do this dang podcast.
That's right.
No, but this kid, you know, I went and looked up his measurables. He's 6'5". I think he's 240, 245. And I was taken back by his athleticism, his quickness, his length. I thought he played the run okay. I don't know when he goes against SEC competition. I want to see that against some of these big defensive tackles, if he can shed, separate, and get off blocks. But, boy, from the backside, this guy plays with his hair on fire. He closes, is an aggressive wrap tackler. But then I watched him in pass rush, and this guy has first step quickness. He uses speed to power. He has a long arm, but was even more impressive for a guy with this length. He can bend and dip through the edges of the offensive lineman, and his closing speed to the quarterback was second to none. So I almost put him, Ryan, and I know I'm getting a little hyped up. We don't judge guys on the first day, but I was looking at all these lists and everything, and he was on Eric's list, but on no one else's list. This kid may be a huge riser up the draft board if he continues to perform like he performed this week. Almost looked like a poor man's Pierce to me from Tennessee, the way he's built and some of the athleticism that flashed when I watched him this past week.
So let me ask you this, Eric. I think he's almost 24. I'll double check. Either almost 23, almost 20. A little older. He's been around the block, metaphorically. But again, to Rick's point, if you didn't know what you were watching and you just turned on the tape and you know who this was or where he came from, you would be blown away.
Yeah, he's gotten better. He was at Georgia Tech before this South Carolina season. And the last 5 games of last year had a tackle for loss in each one of them. So he's really gotten better over his college career. Back into last year, really started to impress at Georgia Tech, now at South Carolina. He is athletic, as you mentioned, Rick. He's added 50-plus pounds since high school. So he's a former kind of undersized linebacker, played some receiver in high school as well. Now he's kind of coming into his body. So I think he's kind of a late bloomer more than an older prospect, Ryan, to your point. But the athletic traits were obvious. I was at Georgia Tech's campus the last 2 years. He jumps out immediately in practices as a talent and a physical body type. And then at Tech kind of showed some late signs of development there too. And obviously he's a guy that as a transfer in a new defensive scheme, how's he going to play? And again, as you pointed out, Rick, he was incredible. I think he had 3.5 sacks or 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. The one question I think NFL teams would want to see on him is, can he consistently finish as a pass rusher? As a run defender, he's outstanding. He plays with great length, opens up the gap, plays with control, can finish as a tackler. But as a pass rusher, when he wins with that long arm, wins with that first rush, can he get to the quarterback and bring those guys down, especially the mobile guys? I think he can, but that's what we want to see during the season because he showed that in week 1, but an SEC play be a little important to see.
He'll be, just to be clear, he'll be 23 on December 20th, just so I can get that right. Rick, let me ask you this. When I watched him, I thought he did better from out wide. When he was over the tackle, he seemed to not be quite as effective. Is that just you leave him out there and let him get after it, or is that just
I don't think you're going to be able to reduce this guy. Who's the kid that came out of Temple? Now, this kid has better length. Nedabike, when he came out, we actually traded for him. But he's better when he's in a wide 9 technique and he can use his athleticism. I don't know if you're going to reduce him down over a tackle or a tight end, if he's going to be able to, he may get thrown out of the bar when he has to take on double teams. But this guy, like I said, the raw traits and length and athletic ability. I know Andre Patterson, who was one of the best, if not the best defensive line coaches I've ever been around, would identify the physical traits that, hey, if you can give me this guy, he may be unpolished, He may be still maturing in his body, but I can't teach the speed, the athleticism, and the length that this guy's has. That's my opportunity and job to develop a guy like this, to see if we can make him a situational DPR. I mean, I don't know how big Huff was when he came out, that signed with Philadelphia, that was up with as Bryce Huff, as I go through the Rolodex here. But he turned out last year to be a pretty good situational pass rusher. And this kid, if he continues to shine, not shrine, shine.
Yeah. Maybe both. Maybe both.
That he will be a fun player to watch as we go through the rest of the season.
That is, this is as excited as I've seen Rick to talk about a player. Usually when I recommend a player, he's him and Han, but he was primed at the pump to do this. So week one well done, Shrine Bowl. Well done, Eric. You got a fan in Rick. I'll just throw it out there, Rick. Just watch him, not knowing anything else about him. He feels like a day 2 guy, worst case all day long, just from one game, not knowing anything else.
Yeah, and it's like I said, when these kind of kids that are unknown, and then they get an opportunity to go down to an East-West Shrine game, and then all of a sudden, you get to see them in person. You get the, like I said, the interview process. You get to see them in one-on-one drills and everything. This is the kind of kid that can come from nowhere, and if he plays well at the SEC level, then goes and shines at the Shrine. If he is invited at the Shrine, can I get that as like a T-shirt? Shine at the Shrine.
I love it.
That's not terrible.
Yeah. That this kid may be one of those risers in this pre-draft process.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the former Shrine Bowl alums who are now rookies. You tweeted this out. The Shrine Bowl did, Eric. Looks like at least 10 guys, undrafted rookies who made the initial 53 that were Shrine Bowl guys. PFF put out their all rookie team from the preseason. A lot of Shrine Bowl guys on there. And I'll mention a couple names, guys that I liked during the draft process. And I know Rick liked Dadrian Taylor Demerson, the safety from Texas Tech, who played for the Cardinals. He had a big interception during the preseason. He was the Shrine Bowl. He made the PFF preseason team. Isaac Garendo, a guy that I liked a lot, Dwight McLaughlin, the cornerback, who I thought should have gotten drafted higher than he did. He made the list as well. But just talk about some of the names on that list. And I don't know so much the progress you saw from then till now, or how you sort of identified them and had a sense that they might have a chance to have some success in the NFL.
Well, I think for one, on the PFF list, Isaac Garendo being the top kick returner, punt returner. I did a thread because I was thankful to be a part of the XFL when we kind of helped craft this new kickoff. And I did a thread about, from a personnel standpoint, how would you kind of build your roster? And I said back in March, hey, we're going to need more guys, not those fast receivers that Devin Hester types seen before. We're going to want running backs who can run his own scheme and get upfield quickly too. And Isaac Garendo was the perfect guy for that. So I'm not surprised at all that he's been the best rookie returner. I think he might be one of the best returners in the NFL this season because of how perfectly he fits in that kick return aspect. And then, of course, in San Francisco, they've had a good rolling list of guys behind Christian McCaffrey. I wouldn't be surprised at all if by the end of the year he's running back 2 in San Francisco. And Taylor Demerson, no surprise at all. I thought he might be a 2nd, 3rd round pick. He'll be their starting safety, nickel in no time in Arizona. But you mentioned the UDFAs. We had a record number of draft picks this year, but also a record number of UDFAs to make rosters. These are the guys that I'm proud of. These are the guys that maybe NFL teams didn't like in the draft process. They didn't like during the draft because they didn't draft them, but they're guys that we like that still made rosters. Curtis Jacobs at Penn State, right? Super talented guy, preseason expectations, up and down year, but actually got claimed off waivers by the Chiefs to the Patriots to make their roster. I bet he plays in their linebacker room. Leonard Taylor at Miami, uber talented. He's been a dynamic in New York. I think he's one of their long-term interior defensive tackles, along with Leonard Williams. A couple other guys as well too. Carson Strong being maybe running back 2 in Kansas City as an undrafted guy out of UCLA too. So proud of those undrafted guys a lot. I think proud of all of our guys equally, but the undrafted guys to make a roster, Rick, you know how hard that is. And you come with low expectations. You're in a battle that you're not supposed to win. And when you win those battles, it means a lot for those guys.
And it talks about their ability to overcome adversity and continue to fight to make an NFL roster, no matter what roadblocks are thrown in their way.
I think I've asked you this before. I don't know if you knew the answer. Do you have an all-time favorite undrafted free agent that you guys found?
A couple.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Rick.
Who you got?
Who are you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking. Sorry,
you,
Rick.
Rick.
I'm talking to you, Rick.
Oh, yeah. Probably our biggest success was probably Adam Thielen. who actually was invited to our rookie mini camp. We didn't even sign him right after the draft. And one day there, CJ Ham, starting fullback up there, been to a couple Pro Bowls. He was a former running back that actually has had a really nice career. And then I believe he set the Minnesota Vikings all-time yards as punt returner, Marcus Sherrills, who was out of the University of Minnesota, undersized corner that ended up being a really, really productive punt returner for us.
Was Thielen only invited because he was local, or was there? Like,
no, we liked him.
Okay.
And he had about 100, to be honest with you, free agent tryout, come to the rookie mini camp. So we were on him right after the draft, and we had reached our 90, but said, hey, come in and you're going to have an opportunity to compete to get on this roster if you come in and do well. And, the rest is history.
Actually, I'll ask you and Eric both this, but in terms of Thielen specifically, Rick, did you know right away when you saw him practice, or it took a while to warm up to him?
No, it took about one individual period running routes. That's so.
Well, let me ask you, though, to follow up on that. Why wasn't he drafted then?
Coming from Mankato State, probably, he ran, I believe, in the 4.5s, nothing outstanding from a physical stature standpoint. But then the thing you can't measure, especially with these undrafted free agents, is their heart and their mentality. And that's what Eric, I think, was kind of alluding to as well. The maturity, everything that, these guys may have got overlooked for whatever reason. But all of a sudden they have this drive in them they're not going to be denied. And they set a goal for themselves. And the East-West, out of all these all-star games, does a phenomenal job identifying guys like this to give them an opportunity to come in. And it's in the proof is in the pudding. All the undrafted free agents that end up showing up there may have not have gotten that opportunity if they didn't come down and play at the East-West or take advantage of getting invited down to the East-West game.
Hey, Eric, do you guys have conversations with your players? You clearly are very high on these guys, even the list of undrafted guys who made Final 53s. During the week, one of the talking points, you may not go in the second round. You may go lower than you think. Here's how you deal with it, or is that outside of your purview, what you're trying to get accomplished?
So we have a partnership with the NFL Player Association, which I'm very thankful for, and they're a big partner with us, and they've kind of chosen us to be their kind of all-star game partner. And they bring in guys from Mike Vick and Channing Crowder and Marcus Spears, but also guys, Mean Joe Green was there this year, right? To also guys who maybe weren't undrafted. That's part of their discussion as well, too, was that, to your point, Rick, whether you're a first-round pick, a late-round pick, or UDFA, the mentality still matters, right? I like to tell our guys about, two guys, Brock Purdy and Isaiah Pacheco, right? And Brock Purdy was the last pick in the draft, obviously well-known now, but I got a call about 3 days into rookie minicamp in San Francisco from a buddy of mine who's there, who was like, Brock's going to play for us one day. They knew immediately, to your point, Rick, oh man, this guy has something different to him. Isaiah Pacheco, 3 or 4 days. Yep. This guy's going to make our roster and probably be one of our starting running backs in a couple of years. And I think for a lot of guys, whether first round pick, 7th round pick undrafted, my message to these guys always is be healthy for the draft process, be healthy and mentally ready for rookie mini camp and training camp, because once you're in that building, they only have 90 guys. They don't have 10,000 to draft. They got 90 guys to consider, and you got to impress in that sense too. And a lot of guys have done that. And every year, hopefully this year too, we've had an undrafted player start week 1. 2 years ago was Jack Sanborn. Last year, Christian Izzian. We'll see who starts week 1 this year. It's an undrafted guy from the Shrine Bowl to start week 1.
It doesn't matter once you get all the smoke and glory and everything is done. Once you step into that building for that rookie mini camp, all bets are off. Every man for themselves. I don't care. And we talked about this all the time. It doesn't matter. Now, you're not going to cut your first round pick, but all these 4th rounders through undrafted free agent, it doesn't matter now. You're here. So we're going to pick the best of the best.
Yeah, Rick and I were big Christian Izzian fans coming out too.
Smart.
He's been fun. All right. Debo, I don't know if you want me to take a break or not before the awards. What do you think?
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, before we let Eric get out of here, we're going to do some rookie bowl predictions now that week 1 in the NFL season is upon us. Mere hours from now, and then we'll do the traditional rookie of the year rankings. But let's do some bowl predictions. And Eric, since you're a guest, if you have any bowl predictions you'd like to share, because Rick says his are pretty saucy. So let's set him up and see what he can do. What do you got, Eric?
Can I give 2? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can give as many as you want.
I got one guy that happened to be Shrine Bowl related, one that's not. I'll say the one. I would say that Drake May starts a game for the Patriots in the first 5 weeks of the season.
That feels pretty bold, Rick. What do you think?
Yeah, he's new to the show.
All right.
Okay, well, let me add a caveat. Assuming Jacoby Brissett's healthy?
Healthy.
Okay.
Yeah. I just, that team is, they got a lot of talent in that team. They're very young, offline receiver. I know people have worried about that, but I just know how talented Drake is, and I've seen him, and I can't imagine he's spending time on the bench week 2, week 3, week 4 if that team, whether or not Jacoby's healthy, he's just going to be too talented to play. And my second one.
Hey, let me get a quick Shrine Bowl shout out too. Yeah. Pop Douglas is a Shrine Bowl alum, correct?
Yep. Wide receiver 1 for the Patriots.
There you go.
Yep. My second one is Shrine Bowl alum will lead rookies in rushing this year, Tyrone Tracy.
Oh,
out of Iowa?
Purdue. I think he'll lead
former
all
receiver.
Rookies.
You need to get your Rolodex going.
Sorry, my bad.
That's why you got to come to the Shrine Bowl, Ryan.
Right.
I think he'll end up leading. I think the running backs, no first round running backs this year. A lot of these guys are going to be in rotations, but I think Tyrone Tracy, thankfully, dodged an injury scare in training camp. I think he ends up being their running back 1 by next couple of weeks. I think he leads the Giants in rushing this year and leads the rookies in rushing this year as well.
Interesting. I have a follow-up to that. My bowl prediction is Tyrone Tracy adjacent. But Rick, yours are Super Bowl. You've sold it pretty heavy here, so you better deliver. What do you got?
Not so fast there, Eric. The NFL rookie leading rusher, the number 1 leading running back will be Blake Corum.
Oh.
Because I think
is he going to get enough work?
He'll get enough work. Williams has a tendency to get nicked up during the season, and they're going to have to be able to run the ball with the Rams. So I'm going to go as my bold prediction that Blake Corum ends up being the rookie that has the most rushing yards this year.
The boldest thing about that prediction, Eric, is that there was an Ohio State player.
Yes.
That I will say, I do agree with Rick. I think he was my number 2 contender because I think he's going to get a lot of burn. I think it's going to be a running back 1A, 1B in Los Angeles.
All right, well, I'll just give my bold prediction now, Rick, because we keep talking about running backs, and then you can come back to yours. Mine is going to be the boldest of all 3, and you're going to hate it, and you're probably going to throw your headphones, so grab your squeeze ball. The leading rusher among all rookies this 2024 class, Jaden Daniels. That's bold. That's what bold looks like, Rick.
Okay. That's great. Yeah.
So, okay.
Hey, Eric, if you ever get any squeeze balls that say East-West Shrine game on them, I'm a very big collector of squeeze balls.
All right. Well, let's take this a step further. We'll do a dollar bet on this. And Eric, you're more than welcome to join the dollar bet. That's the thing Rick and I do.
Yeah.
Rick got trounced last year in the dollar bets.
It was a setup. It was a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
I wasn't even part of the show when they decided that he won the dollar bet thing.
Let's start here. So, Eric, as the guest, what's the over-under for Tyrone Tracy rushing yards total?
I'll probably say around 799.5.
799.5?
Yeah.
All right, Rick. Blake Corum, over under that number.
He'll be 800 plus.
Okay. That means Jaden Daniels can't rush for 800 yards?
He can.
Rick doesn't agree. All right. So, Debo, that's the dollar bet. 799.5 is the number. Tyrone's winning for Eric. And Rick and I think that Jaden and Blake are going over that number. You love to see it. All right. So that's another dollar bet in the books. I like that one. All right, Rick, continue with your bold predictions.
All right. I have 2 more bold predictions. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Luke McCaffrey will be one of the top 5 rookie receivers coming out of this NFL draft.
All right.
So, well, you got this was a pretty deep draft class. Now.
Yeah, give me some names because my initial reaction is okay. This is
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
Malik Neighbors.
Yep.
Brian Thomas Jr. Keon
Ladd.
Coleman. Ladd McConkey. There you can go. There's a litany. Your boy Leggett, Xavier Leggett. Yeah, there's a litany of receivers, but Luke McCaffrey will be ahead of a lot of those guys and go into the top 5. I'll even say top 3.
There you go. That's bold. Top 3. That's insane bold.
Okay, and my last bold prediction: Chop Robinson will lead all rookies in sacks this year.
Okay, so he was edge rusher 4 or 5, I think. I'll double check real quick in terms of Latu went first, then Dallas, then Jared, then Chop. So he was edge rusher 4, 26 overall. Will lead all edge rushers in sacks, rookies.
Yes.
All right, Eric, I'm going to ask you to grade the last 2. So top 3 for Luke McCaffrey sounds insanely bold. Top 5 sounded lukewarm. Where do you come down on that one?
I think opportunities, right? Jahan Dott's not there anymore, so he's going to be wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 in that offense. But I will say Jaden at LSU spread the ball around a lot. I think he'll do that in Washington too. So I like Luke a lot. Great kid. I know Ed McCaffrey. And I'm rooting for Luke as well too. But top 3 is pretty bold, Rick.
That's what it said in the instructions. Bold predictions.
Just following instructions.
Yeah, that's what I do.
What about Chop leading all that one?
No, I like it. I like it. I think he'll probably be a little bit, I wouldn't say on a pitch count, but he'll be a DPR for Miami and not be playing too many snaps. And when he comes in, he'll have an opportunity too. So Chop is probably the best speed rusher in last year's draft. And I think he'll have a chance to do it in Miami. So,
all right, here are my bold predictions. I told you the Jaden Daniels one. Rick, you love that one. This one, I couldn't. I tried to make a. Eric had to mute himself. He's laughing at your stupid joke so much.
It's not funny.
Rick's faking sleeping. I stayed away from Malik Neighbors because I don't care who the quarterback is. He just feels like he's going to take over games. But this one is way bolder than your Luke McCaffrey one. My guy, Ladd McConkey, has more receiving yards than Marvin Harrison Jr.
Ooh, I'll put $1 on that.
Okay, we can dollar that up. Any reaction to that, Eric? You didn't mute yourself, so that's a good sign.
Opportunities there, but I think Josh Palmer is in for a big year. I think he'll be their clear receiver 1 in
I'll bold it more since you want to do all this bold BS.
What do you got?
Luke McCaffrey will be more productive in receptions and yards than Ladd McConkey.
All right, Ladd, stay healthy, baby. Just stay healthy. I love it. All right, we got all sorts of Debo's fiercely scribbling on the dollar bet page. All right, my last one. And this guy was near and dear to my heart in the draft process. I talked about him a lot. And Rick, you knew his backstory really well. I thought he had a pretty good preseason as a situational pass rusher. You said Chop Robinson. My guy, Jonah Ellis, for the Denver Broncos, gets at least 7 sacks. Shrine Bowl alum, too.
Yes. Yeah, I could see that. He had a pretty good preseason now. And I know I know some people out there that really think he has an opportunity, to contribute this year.
Oh, you didn't hate that. That was a pretty good one. Tell us the Jonah Ellis backstory because you know that one really well.
Jonah Ellis, Luther Ellis, who when I was in Minnesota, we drafted him, I believe, in the 1st or 2nd round out of Utah. Well, he adopted a lot of kids like we have adopted a lot of kids. He has 10 kids. And it seems like every year, just like the who is the Fukusa, or who is the other family that has like guys that come out every year? I think they ran out of
I don't know.
Fukusis. God, what I can't remember what their names are. But the Ellis's always have all his kids have come up and either been through the NFL. Some of them have made it. Some of them are not. But I know one thing, that having Luther Ellis as your dad, who is a great human being, but they're going to play with their ears pinned back and go all out on everything that they do.
So Jonah Ellis, Shrine Bowl alum, Denver Broncos. I think he was a 3rd round pick. I'll have to double check. But he gets at least 7 sacks. No one's pushing back on that. I love it. All right, let's do to the more traditional NFL rookie awards here. Yeah, Jonah went in the 3rd round. All right. First up, and I didn't put this on your rundown, Eric, but I would imagine you can do this on the fly. The NFL Rookie of the Year, just the overall Rookie of the Year. You want to go to Rick first while you think about it? Or you got it.
It's one of 2 guys, I think, but you can go first.
It is
Rick.
one of 2 guys. Go ahead, Rick. Who do you got?
Luke McCaffrey. Oh, sorry.
I didn't know if there was an award for NFL Rookie of the Year. There's an offense and a defensive award. Is there a total NFL Rookie of the Year award too? I don't think that exists.
I just made it up. So what's the first pick NFL Rookie of the Year award?
I don't like it, so I'm going to go what was sent to me, offense and defensive Rookie of the Year, and I'm going to stick with my bold predictions. So I understand that Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison's all are favored to do that, and probably a pass rusher. I don't think a corner would be in the mix right now. I don't see a Sauce Gardner. I think there'll be some good corners, but I think the defense will go to a pass rusher. But I'm going to stick with our bold prediction and not go with mainstream media like you do, Ryan, all the time and take the low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Which seems to be your passion on this show.
It is.
So,
thank you.
So my bold prediction, offensive Rookie of the Year, Bo Nix. My bold
That is bold. That's very bold.
Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chop Robinson. I had to stay with that theme.
All right, fair enough. I did send you a follow-up email about the Rookie of the Year, but you didn't read that one.
Yeah, because it didn't make any sense because there's no such award. So I ignored that email.
All right, fair enough. Can't I'm glad Eric's enjoyed himself. That's one of us. All right, Eric, go ahead.
You wonder why you're not getting an East-West Shrine game ball.
It's right there in front of me. It's quite clear while I'm not getting football.
Yeah. Okay, mainstream guy.
All right. From mainstream Ryan to Shrine Bowl Eric, what do you got?
I will say, Rick, your Bo Nix pick, people in Denver in the draft process the whole time, and after the draft too, they're pretty confident in Bo. I mean, people in Denver think Bo was QB 1 or 2, 3, like he was in that tier for sure. So they're bullish on him, and he's the guy. So I'll stick probably more obvious. I think Jaden Daniels is my pick. I think, Ryan, your idea of rushing yards is not crazy. I think he'll be in the top 5 in rookie rushing yards, I think. And it's the vibes from Washington, talking to people there, are just couldn't be more excited for the season to start in Jaden Daniels. The way he's approached the offseason, the way the receivers have bought into him, the way he's adapting the offense, the way they built the whole offense around him, and it's working. I think Caleb, we've seen his growth on Hard Knocks and his role in that offense. I do worry about some Keenan Allen injury stuff and how much they're relying on DJ Moore and a rookie receiver, Roma Dunze. But I think Caleb's going to be really special. But I'll give the edge to Jaden Daniels on offense. And then defensively, I'm going to go Jared Verse. I think Jared's going to have a great opportunity this year. They need him to be productive. He'll benefit from Braden Fisk and my guy, Kobe Turner, on the interior to kind of keep the A and B gap okay. He can kind of work on the outside. But Jared, I thought, got underrated as a draft prospect last year. I think he really was a special. I think him and Byron Murphy are 2 of the better defensive prospects we've had in the last couple of years. I think Byron's going to be super impactful, just won't be defensive rookie of the year. I think he was the best guy last year. But Jared, high character, high ceiling, high floor. He'll step in as their DN. I think he is going to challenge Chop Robinson, but I think Jared could get to even 8, 9, 10 sacks this year in a good season. I think he's my defensive rookie of the year pick.
And Rick, Will Anderson had 8 sacks last year. I think that was the number, 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think 8 or 9, somewhere there. But he was all over the place. I mean, in a positive way. No,
that's right. All right. Since no one's going to partake in my other award, I'll just go offensive rookie of the year. I'm going to stick with my original, what I wrote down originally. I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors.
No.
I think the way he played, obviously last year, but even in the preseason when Daniel Jones was throwing balls in a general direction, he was coming down with it. I think he has a chance to be like Jamar Chase special. Is that crazy, Jamar Chase special? You okay with that, Rick?
Well, Joe Burrow's not throwing to him, and
That's
apparently
true.
Joe Shine is looking for a new quarterback, according to your latest breaking news.
My sources are telling me via Twitter, via Hard Knocks. I don't think it's going to matter. That's how good he is.
Okay, that's good.
All right, well, Eric, you asked for Raw Rick, you got Raw Rick. I hope it met your expectations and then some.
Yep. Rick was shining at the shrine. I get those shirts made for you, Rick.
Yeah.
Shining at the shrine.
Shine at the shrine.
Love it. Trademark.
All right, Rick, before we get out of here, I didn't make a graphic for it, though. Just off the top of your head, see how smart you are here. How many days to the Shrine Bowl? January 20th, 2025. January 30th, 2025.
I believe Eric said 53.
That's still he has to mail out the rosters. That's the invites.
Yeah, well, then the work's done, and then you just sit there. He just sits there and puts.
I'll email Rick the rosters, and then he's done. That's it.
Yeah. He has nothing left to do after he got the rosters done. There's no other logistics involved.
I think the 50-ish days will get you to Halloween. 147, as we sit here, until January 30th, 2025 for the Shrine Bowl. So we got a little more time than Eric does, but. As always, Eric, thank you for joining us. This was great. I think Rick was he was in a sour mood, and now he's in a much better mood. So we have you to thank for that. He's getting the football out of it and some squeezy balls. So this is good.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Seriously, it was a great time, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll see you. I'll talk to you guys before then, but we'll see you guys in Frisco this year, huh?
Perfect.
Absolutely, you heard it. All right, Rick, that's a wrap on episode 177. Thanks, Eric. Thanks to Rick. Thanks to Debo for producing. Thanks, you guys who watch and listen. We'll see you next week. Football's back.